Hey, what's up, guys? This is Adi from Sastry Nation, and today we're going to be talking about the immune system. Okay, now that you're back from the intro, I guess I'm going to make this video a two-part video because the immune system is pretty complicated. So this would be part one. All right. So immune. Oh, why isn't this writing? Okay. All right. Immune system. It's really dull, isn't it? Okay. There it is. Yeah. Immune system. There it is. That's better. Okay. Now, the part of the immune system we're actually going to be talking about in this video is the non-specific defense. Non-specific defense. Okay. So the you have the non-specific defense, and then you have the specific defense. And the difference between the two is the non-specific defense is not going to be specific to a pathogen. So it's not specific to a pathogen. Yeah, so it's not going to be specific to a pathogen, whereas the specific defense is going to be specific to that pathogen. And you can probably tell because of the name. Specific and non-specific kind of makes sense, right? Yeah. So basically how the body's actually going to deal with, now let's say you get cut, your body's going to use the non-specific defense if you get cut because, it doesn't need to know the pathogen to fix up the wound, I guess. And then it'll figure out that, oh, this is the pathogen. Let's see if it's anywhere else in the body so we can kill it off. Okay, so there's specific things that that protect us from a lot of bacteria and viruses and stuff. And this is like the first defense. So if it passes the first defense, then we have to get to the specific defense. So the non-specific defense is the first defense. First defense against pathogens. So this would be like a fence. If you're referring to like a house or something, this would be like the fence. So once we get past the fence, then we'll have to actually deal with it. Okay, so there are certain things, again, like I said. So the skin is a major part of this. Okay, so you have the skin, and so a skin basically protects us from everything. It doesn't let anything in. And it does this with the help of lysozymes, which is basically like the oil on your skin. The oil is actually going to be pretty acidic, and so it's going to kill off a lot of the bacteria that would infect you or some things like that. Now obviously there's going to be a lot of bacteria on your skin anyways, just because that's I think like the fact is there's more bacteria than cells on your there's more bacteria on your body than there are cells in your body or something like that, I think is the factoid. But yeah, there's a lot of bacteria, and lysozyme is going to kill out a lot of the bacteria because of its acidic nature. So you have that lysozyme. Now in your mouth you actually have saliva. So saliva will actually kill off bacteria too. It'll actually break it down. Just like it breaks down food, it'll break down the bacteria, and basically it'll kill it. And then obviously you have mucus. You have mucus, the mucous membrane, I guess you could call it membrane. The mucous membrane, no, you know what, let me, so acidic, breaks it down. And then the mucous membrane will actually catch the bacteria. So this is lying throughout your I guess neck, throughout your airways in your neck, your trachea. And so there's going to be a lot of mucous membranes there. and it's gonna just catch the bacteria, dust, anything else that it's not that's not air, I guess it's gonna catch. And then what'll happen is that the mucus will actually just fall into your stomach and then die there. So it's gonna catch bacteria, dust, and then whatever else that comes in contact with it, etc. I guess through contact. So I mean, I guess you could I guess a good representation of this is like if you had a sticky, if you put glue on a paper and then you like ran it through the air, you'd get a lot of dust and things like that. Or like, you know, for tape, and if you have a Scotch tape and then, you know, you just let it sit there, it'll gather a lot of dust. Basically, that's what's happening. But what'll happen is this will accumulate, and you'll get a lot of you know, bacteria and stuff in there, and then it'll actually just fall into your stomach. You know, there's pathways that that'll send it to your stomach. I know like your trachea is gonna go straight to your lungs, but there are pathways that'll send it to your you know, send it to your stomach basically. There's other things that it'll send it to your stomach somehow. And so basically it'll die in the stomach because your stomach acids are very acidic. So it'll die in your stomach. So yeah, it'll die in your stomach. Your stomach actually has hydrochloric acid, and that's like the most acidic, one of the most acidic, you know, I think it has a pH of 1 or 2. So yeah, it's very acidic. So yeah, it'll just go and die there, basically. You know, if not something. Now, if it does survive there, then we're gonna have to, you know, then the body's just gonna have to do the specific defense because it'll start attacking the body, and you'll just have to do specific defense for that to kill that off. Okay, so let's see, the inflammatory response. So now that's what we're gonna talk about next, is the inflammatory response. Inflammatory response. Now, I forgot to put out a picture. I just remembered that. Okay, but it's pretty I mean, it's not too basic, I guess. There's a lot of stuff that happens, but I mean, I guess I can explain it without a picture. Okay, so imagine you cut yourself. You know, you're cutting vegetables or something, and you cut your finger. Not cut your finger like clean off, but you cut your finger. So you know, this is what happens when you cut your finger or something like that happens. Okay, so like something penetrates the skin. Yeah, so something like an abrasion, something like that, lacerations, whatever, penetrates the skin. Okay, and so like you're bleeding or something like that, right? So what'll happen is those cells will actually, the affected cells, or like the cells that are cut, you know, they're gonna be like separated. So like there's a pretty good chance that you might cut a cell. If you do cut a cell, like exactly if you cut a cell, that's probably not gonna happen if, you know, depending on the size of the blade. But if you cut a cell, it'll release histamines. So it'll release histamine. And so now another thing, like another way that they're still researching this, I think. But one of the things they think happens when you actually are cut and like the release of histamines is that they think there's a lot of like gap junctions and stuff. Tight junctions and gap junctions, you know, and there's a lot of signaling going on between the cells. And so what they think happens is like between the tissue and the cells, I guess, and the cells, like a part of the tissue, my bad. And so what they think happens is that when you actually cut the tissue, the cells, a part of the tissue, will be like, oh, we're cut because I'm not next to this guy or something like that. So you know, I don't know if you know what I'm saying. Okay, so let's say that you have a bunch of cells like this. Okay, and then suddenly something cuts it. So you'll have this, and then you'll have some here. So now what's going to happen is, okay, so let's say the blade goes away. Now what's going to happen is that there's going to be this distance between these two. And so like there'll be a cut right here. And there'll be like a distance between these two. And so basically by having that distance, and this, the signals aren't going to go through and things like that. So the cells are going to actually, all of these cells will release histamines. Okay, so all of these cells are going to release histamine. And so what the histamines are going to actually do is it's going to first of all expand the capillaries. So it's going to basically expand the capillaries, like capillaries. I don't know how you pronounce that. Capillaries. Basically, by expanding the capillaries, you're going to allow bigger cells or more blood to flow into that area. So what's going to happen is a lot of blood is going to flow into that area. And basically by doing that, the expanding of the capillaries will actually, I guess, make that spot a little bit swollen. So it's going to swell up that spot. Now I don't know if you actually noticed this, but next time you get cut, now don't go and cut yourself, but next time you do get cut, I mean, and you will, notice like how the that part where you did get cut is actually going to swell up. So even if you get scratched, things like that, you'll still swell up a little bit. It won't be too noticeable, but it'll still be there. And so once you swell up, what happens is that a lot of these phagocytic cells, phagocytic cells will come into that area, and so they'll start taking out all foreign substances, and then also like killing cut up cells, things like that. And so basically that's what's going to happen there. You're just going to have a lot of cells be all of the bacteria, whatever got into the system, I guess, because of the cut, whatever got in will get killed, and then also all of the cells that are affected or have been infected, cut, anything like that, they will also be killed. Okay, so and then So what will happen after this is that, okay, if the body knows, sorry, I had to read my notes, but if the body knows that if the immune system knows that this infection's gone everywhere, it's gonna actually increase the temperature of the body as another like fail-safe method of trying to kill off as much bacteria as possible. So this is gonna be done by releasing pyrogen. Pyrogen. This is going to be done by releasing pyrogen. Oh, you saw the white. Okay. So basically, what's going to happen is you're gonna, the body's gonna put itself into like this feverish state. So what's gonna happen is, you're gonna have your whole body's temperature will rise, to I think 100-ish degrees. So it's gonna be basically like you have a fever. Now basically, what the body's trying to do is it's gonna try to kill off the bacteria by raising the heat up. So a lot of bacteria will die because of this. So it's going to try to kill off the bacteria. So this will raise. Release to raise heat. Okay, and the heat will kill off bacteria. Heat will kill bacteria. Okay, so the heat will then kill the bacteria, basically. Okay, now how the heat is actually going to be, I guess, generated is by using non-shivering thermogenesis. I don't know if you remember from the homeostasis video. I don't know if I even went over that, but that's what that is. Non-serving thermogenesis, I guess I'll go over it, is when ATP, so you know how in the mitochondria you have, you have your inner membrane in your mitochondria, things like that. So this would be a mitochondria. So your mitochondria is gonna, instead of making ATP, it's gonna convert like the glucose and things like that into heat. So it's gonna take in glucose, and then it's gonna make heat instead of ATP. Heat. So heat. So it's gonna make heat instead of ATP, and that's just what's gonna happen. It's just gonna make heat instead of ATP. Now I'm not totally sure how the mitochondria actually does that, or what the chemical process is, but that's just what happens. Heat is just made, and so this is going to be sent out to like the entire body to make as much heat as possible, and the heat will actually be made, and hopefully it'll kill off a lot of the bacteria that got into to the system. Okay, so so then what will happen is, like I said, most of these cells will be killed here. The infected cells will be killed by the phagocytic cells right here. But mainly the phagocytic cells will mainly be focusing on killing, they'll mainly be focusing on killing the bacteria, mainly. Bacteria, viruses, things like that. Okay, so so then what happens is that, then interferon is going to be released by the phagocytic cells, and all this commotion, something's going to release interferon. So interferon. Okay, so interferon. So interferons are going to bring in T cells. So we'll talk more about like T cells and stuff like that later. But T cells, what they're going to do is they're actually just going to T cells are just gonna actually they're just gonna tell the cells to move away from interferon is actually gonna be, I don't know why I said that, but interferon is gonna be released by the affected cells. So affected cells. Yeah, so interferon is actually going to be released by the affected cells, and not by everything else. So affected cells will release this, and then this will actually cause the nearby cells to move away. So it'll cause near cells to move away. Forget all that stuff I said about T cells and stuff. We'll talk about that next week. Okay, and so what interferon's also going to do is it's going to actually stop viral reproduction. Basically, now there's other issues with this, but it's gonna stop viral reproduction. Now, if you remember from my video where I talked about viruses, what viruses will actually do is they're going to input the DNA into the nucleus, and then it's going to actually send in proteins and make viral proteins instead of, cells proteins. Now, the problem with interferon is it's going to stop like all protein making, like completely. It'll stop all of it. So the cell's not going to make any proteins either. So basically the cell's going to die pretty soon. And that's basically what happens. The cell will actually get ready to kill itself. This is caused by apoptosis. I don't know if you remember from the I guess plant video, but it's the same thing. It's going to be named the same thing. Now it's just the cell is actually going to get ready for death. So cell will get ready for apoptosis. Now when we talk about the specific defense too, effector like T cells will actually come in and kill the cell too. That also happens, but we will talk about that next week. Okay, so the cells will just die by apoptosis, and obviously all of the any viral any viruses already made will actually be spread out amongst the other cells, and that's why interferon will actually cause the cells to move away, in like a to try to protect themselves as much as they can. Now, when they move away, the phagocytic cells will come in and eat. They at least have a little bit of protection, because if they're right next to each other, then the viruses will go straight into the other cell, and it'll infect the other cell. But if the virus doesn't do that, if there's space between the viruses being released and the actual the other cells, in the non-infected cells, then the phagocytes the phagocytic cells have a chance to actually kill all the viruses before it actually infects any other cells. Because the more cells it infects, it's more like viruses infecting is like a exponential equation, I guess. It grows exponentially because or geometrically, I guess if you think about it like that. But basically, once it infects one cell, it'll grow like 10 new, let's say like 10, but it's like thousands. It'll grow 10 viruses in our example, and then those 10 will go 10 more, and then those 10 more, 10 more, and it'll keep going until, the whole like person is, every single cell is infected by that point. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen because the body will fight it back. But you never know. Stuff like that does happen if the immune system's not good enough to actually combat all of that. Okay, so basically that's about it. This video wasn't that long. Long, I guess. Now you might be asking me why I didn't include the specific defense, but and that's because the specific defense is really the most complicated part of the immune system, because there's a lot of steps and pathways and stuff that the body can take. So if something happens, if this condition's met, it'll go one way. If another condition's met, it'll go another way. Things like that. It's like a decision pathway, I guess. So that's why I'm just gonna do that next week, because that video will be really long. All right. So yeah, nothing. Just know what the specific defense is, non-specific defense is, and what the difference is. The different things that are actually a part of the the non-specific defense, and then basically all of the inflammatory response. So the steps, like it penetrates the skin, releases histamine, why the histamine is released, expanded capillaries, what they do. The swelling, because it's the inflammatory response, and then what the phagocytes do, and then what pyrogen does, how the heat is actually going to be, created or generated, how heat's going to be generated, and that's by non-shivering thermogenesis. So let me write that down, non-shivering thermogenesis. Non-shivering thermogenesis is basically what that is. Okay, yeah, so if you know that, and then you know what interferon does, basically what it does, just a general idea, because interferons is used more in the, this is going like almost into the specific defense. Interferon is going to be used a lot in the specific defense, and there's a lot of chemicals in the specific defense that's going to be released, and you'll have to know what each of them do. So that's one of the harder things about the immune system. Okay, yeah, so that's about it. I think we're at 30 minutes, I think, yeah. So I'll go ahead and end the video. Okay, so I guess I'll see you guys on the next one.